Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Mystical Awakenings with Deb and Arjay right here on KGRA.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see y'all. We have a full new cold supermoon tonight. And holy moly, is it amazing.
Yeah.
We were out looking at it. And, God, it looks huge. I love it. I love it. I'm a moon girl. So we're excited for tonight. We have a really wonderful guest. I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about him, but
Well, I will.
maybe
Okay.
Arjay will.
Mike Clelland was a guest speaker a few years back at our Michigan UFO Contact conference and was such a powerhouse of insight and information on the link between owls, UFOs, and other high strangeness. Mike Clelland has had many callings: author, illustrator, wilderness traveler, podcaster, and UFO researcher. His books fall into two contrasting categories. First came funny outdoor instructionals with cartoons. These taught the technical skills of skiing, climbing, mountain traveling, glacier rescue, and ultralight backpacking. Next came a more thoughtful series, an inquiry into the relationship between owls and UFOs. Mike Clelland's 2015 book, The Messengers, was met with high praise. In it, he explores the mysteries and connection between owls, synchronicities, and UFO abduction. It was the first-hand experience with these elusive events. His first-hand experiences with these elusive events that had been the foundation for his research. This book is also a personal memoir and a journey of self-discovery. His website, hiddenexperience.blogspot.com, that was a little hard one to say, explores these events and their connection to the alien contact phenomenon. It also features extended audio interviews with visionaries and experts examining the complexities of the overall UFO experience. Mike is also considered an expert in the skills of ultralight backpacking and is the author and illustrator of a series of instructional books on advanced outdoor techniques. After 25 years of living in the Rockies, he now lives in the Adirondacks. Well, I think he's moved from there too. Welcome,
Mike
Clelland.
And Mike.
Yes, I'm no longer in the Adirondacks, and the website you gave is a kind of an old one that's still up but the better place is MikeClelland.com.
Okay, Mike Clelland. Yeah, that's a lot easier to say too.
That blog is a holdover from 2009.
Oh, okay. It's been around a while.
That's high, yeah.
It's good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
And what a wonderful book. We both had the pleasure of reading that one.
Yes.
Great book.
Plus the other ones you have too. We'll get into that too. So, it's we've had our own experience with owls too in the mystic, and I think we talked about it one time. But it is intriguing that they show up in the paranormal, the mystics, the folklore, and every possible thing you can think of that deals with the unknown. And the fact that bird in itself is very, very, very unique in the fact that most of them are nighttime birds.
Yep.
And if anybody out there wants to read all these fascinating things that Mike has researched about owls, you'll be impressed. I guarantee you that. So.
Absolutely. I was actually very relieved when I found your information online when I was researching, because I had had some experiences and owls kept popping up. We have owls everywhere in the house. I have owl earrings on and owl necklace on. So we have that connection.
what you're saying is very common, that the owls show up in the lives of people of having a list of experiences. So the core of my research has initially been owls and the UFO contact, and how owls will show up often around the time of a UFO sighting, or of like UFO contact, around like in the time that someone is having abduction experiences or direct contact experiences. And sometimes it's like simultaneous, hand in hand, that there's no lag between the owl and the UFO. They're kind of seen together. What happened was, when I did the first book, what's interesting, I just realized, I realized this morning. The book The Messengers was published 10 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
Congrats. Happy anniversary.
10, that's a big deal. So
Yeah.
that book has been around for 10 years, and it feels like it has made an impact in the the funny subculture of the people who research or follow the UFO thoughts and ideas. And at first, 10 years ago, it was kind of like revolutionary in a way. Now, Whitley Strieber had covered it beautifully in his book Communion, which was from 1987, and I covered it very thoroughly. It's a 400-page book. It's a big, fat book where I really dig into I tried to look at it from every conceivable angle. I did my best to see it from all sides. And now, a decade later, it feels like it's almost just understood. It's just accepted as self-evident. And it's funny, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and people will say, well, just leading up to this, I had an owl sighting. This owl showed up. And what would have happened before, when I would listen for it, I'm like, they're going to mention my book, right? I'm going to hear they're going to mention my book, and so, but what they say is, oh, of course. Yeah, of course an owl would show up. That makes perfect sense. And so it's like, all of us, I guess I did my job, because it seemed unbelievable 10 years ago, and now people are just saying, well, of course an owl showed up alongside a UFO sighting. So in more recent, so when I first put out the book, there were it was all just like owls and UFOs. I covered some other things in the book, but that was the core of it. But so there's 5 things that I found that are connected to the owl mystery. And the first would be the UFO thing. So that's one. Mm-hmm. 2 would be meditation, people meditating. I got a lot of stories about people sitting down to meditate and seeing owls. Or usually, what it is, it's coming out of the meditation. Often they'll open their eyes and there'll be an owl directly in the line of sight. They'll be meditating in their home. There'll be an owl in the window, like staring in at them. And then owls and psychedelics, most often mushrooms, where people will see owls while in the throes of like the psychedelic experience. And sometimes it's a real owl. A bunch of people will be around the campfire all on mushrooms, and then an owl will like land in among them.
Right.
And then other times it's more like psychedelic visionary things, where like, oh my gosh, like the interior of the room, like all of a sudden there was a 15-foot tall owl talking to me, So but I consider both of those valid.
Yeah.
Right. As far as the way I'm looking at my research. And then the third would be, well, now we're up to 4, owls in shamanic initiation. When shamans are initiated into their role in the tribe, they will have owl experiences, or in the process of their becoming a shaman, they will have owl experiences. Very common. And there's a community of shamans. There's a lot of shamans out there, and there's traditional here in North America and all over the world. There's traditional folklore and traditional practices, and it's well understood that shamans have a lot of owl experiences. And the final one would be death. So owls and death. And the folklore is that owls show up before someone dies. It's like like you talk to a Native American in the Southwest, and they'll say, in our culture, the hooting of an owl foretells the death of a tribe member. I hear that. I recognize it. I've heard people tell me that. I've seen it in the literature. I have almost zero like people reaching out to me. I got no stories, very few. I should amend that. I have very few accounts of owls showing up before someone passes. What I do have is a wealth of accounts where owls will show up after the passing of a loved
Right.
one.
Yeah.
And it's most often a parent. Like the stories that I'm collecting are most often a parent or a grandparent. And so I don't know if I talked about this from the last time. And so I could tell a story. So I'll tell a story. Let me just follow up before I get there. What I've found is that I'm asking for the UFO stories, right on my website. It says UFOs and owls, and then I say I want to hear your owl stories. So people are coming to me with their UFO stories and their owls, but also stories of death too. It's the UFO stories are outnumbering the death stories, but I think that's only because I'm asking for the UFO stories. I feel pretty strongly that the owls and death stories are more consistent in people's experiences than the owls and UFO thing. And I think it's been going on all throughout human history. Can I tell a story about what happened with my?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
So my mom died in 2013. So that's 12 years ago. And she had been suffering terribly. And so it was my sister and brother and I were all there. And it was a relief in many ways. It was terribly sad, but at the same time, it was a relief. I was in the room with my mother and my sister, and my sister was on one side of the bed, and we both held her hand as she passed. It was a really powerful experience. I know other people have had that experience in their life, but wow, that was really powerful, and it really meant a lot, just as her son and as like a person. And so it happened at about 3 a.m, and we'd been up all night, and then we were both my sister and I. My brother came right away. He was just nearby, so he came right over right after she passed, and we had a lot of stuff to do the next day. There was all kinds of issues with funerals and legal things and contacting newspapers and contacting help. So we were just like running on empty, and I had already been doing my owl research at that point. When I was staying, my sister lived in North Carolina, or still lives in North Carolina, and my mom was staying at a hospice care center in North Carolina, right near my sister, so my sister could visit her. And I earlier, just a few weeks before she passed, I went, and I think I spent like 3 weeks with my sister, just so I could visit my mom. So I'd go there and hang out, and she was in very poor health, but I spent a lot of time with her, and I was really glad that I did. So while I was there with my sister, I would read my emails in the morning. My sister and I would drink coffee in the morning, and I'd open my email and I'd read some emails, and then all these owl stories were coming in. And my sister was like, "Mike, what have you gotten yourself into? What is going on?" I'd read these stories aloud. I'm like, I get them every day. They show up every day. I get stories every day. I got stories already this morning, and today I got some yesterday. So, and my brother knew about this too, and he was a little more standoffish about it. He did not understand. Now, my brother was at the event in 2022. My brother lives in Michigan, so he saw me give a talk. He was there that day.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, and so my brother and sister both knew about my work, and they weren't into it really. So that night, we'd been up all night. We'd been up all the next day, and finally the sun was setting, and we're sitting on the back porch of my sister's house. And it's in the south with the big trees, and it's humid in summertime, and we're drinking a glass of wine. And my sister's best friend from across the street, Ruthie, was there. So I'm in the couch. I'm in the middle of this big couch, this big wicker couch. And here, I gotta leave a note for someone. I'm gonna go ahead. There's a lawnmower right outside the window. You might hear a lawnmower in a second. Sorry, I gotta.
Okay.
So sorry about that. So we're sitting on the couch. I'm in the middle. My sister Jeannie's side, my Jim's on the side, both facing Ruthie. Ruthie's my sister's best friend. Ruthie's wonderful, wonderful, big-hearted woman. And she kind of composes herself, and she's very Southern and very proper. She goes, Jim, Gene, Mike, I know there is an afterlife. And I know because of an experience I had with an owl. And when she says that, my sister literally puts her hands above her and goes, owls, owls, no, no, not owls, no. And my brother kind of did this to me. He kind of crossed his arms and looked at me like, did you pay her to say this? I could just see him. What did you do? And I was like, I just felt like I'm in the middle. And poor Ruthie would have no idea what she had just said. And I was like, Ruthie, you don't know it, but I've been doing this research on owls and how they show up in mystical events, sometimes with UFOs, oftentimes with death. I would love to hear your story. Please tell it. So she says, when my daddy died, she was very Southern, called said daddy. When my daddy died, I would walk the nature trail here around the neighborhood. And there's a nature trail. And I would walk Jeannie's dog, my sister's dog. I would walk her dog around the nature trail. And so she said, every day I would walk the nature trail. And every day I would pass an owl. I was walking in the nature trail because I was grieving my daddy. I was so broken because my dad was gone. And every day I would pass this owl. And then one day I passed the owl and it hooted at me. And I looked at this owl. It was right on a branch, right next to me, right at eye level. And I thought to myself, owls don't come out during the day.
Right.
Why am I seeing this owl? And she looked at this owl and said, are you my daddy? And in that moment, all of her grieving was alleviated.
Oh,
she just
my
felt
gosh.
it melt away. And she was so gentle and so thoughtful in how she told this story. And she said, I felt so blessed that such a beautiful animal could be the messenger for my father. And now in telling the story now, I didn't need to hear another owl story about owls and death. Like, that was a beautiful story. I didn't it's like nothing new to me. Like, she told me a story I'd heard many times, but I think it was for my brother and sister.
Exactly.
I think they heard it so they would realize that this wasn't some far out someone, chanting and drumming in Sedona. This was like Ruthie, the most grounded person in the neighborhood. and I was so that a child with their parent, and then talking to the owl as if it is their parent, and then the alleviation of grief. I have this story so many times. The pattern is unmistakable, and I just feel like I think it's like a universal truth that we are like, this magical things are happening all the time. And unless we share them, I'm sure people are having these experiences and are afraid to say as much. But unless we share them, like, I think we're richer, more complete humans because of these kinds of stories.
Right. And I'm sure there's many that never get, people see something like that. It never clicks with them why
the messenger. Yeah.
Right. So they don't talk about it because it doesn't make sense to them.
Well, I got a lot of stories where people will talk. That's very common, that people will talk to the owl.
Yeah.
A deceased parent or a deceased loved one or a friend. And then there's even lots of traditions in Ireland and such, as other birds too, robins, and you might hear the big lawnmower in the background here, so it won't last very long. We just got to move it from one side of the driveway to the other. So this is something that I've presently I'm working on a smaller book, the Owls and the Messengers book. It's pretty big and fat. I want to do kind of a thin, smaller book that's only about owls and death, and I've started it, and I think it'll be honestly, you know what I want? I don't want to put the word UFO in the book. I want the book to be very accessible. You put the word UFO in the book, and wow, all of a sudden people have a different reaction. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's all intertwined.
It's all intertwined, but I want to try to open the mystery up to a wider audience. If there was a book with UFO in the cover, and and you wanted to give it as a gift, boy, that would be tough, right?
Right.
But if it was just a story of very beautiful, heartfelt stories of owls and death, I think that would be an easier sell.
Right. And I think it's beautiful, Mike, that you're going to do that, because it does say there is no true death. And
Oh, yeah.
in a time of grieving, especially, people need to realize that. And do you think that it's usually right in that time of grieving that people do have the owl experience?
It's usually very soon after the passing, the majority of the accounts that I have. But there's other accounts that seem to imply a connection to death. Oh, here's a story. So there's a bridge. I can't remember exactly where it was. In the south, great big giant bridge crosses over a gorge, and this fellow was driving across the bridge, and the bridge is notorious for people who commit suicide. They'll jump from the bridge. So he was driving across the bridge, and he just said, I should say a prayer. So he's driving, and he says a prayer to a prayer of hope and a prayer to honor the memory of the people who have jumped from the bridge. And he gets to the end of the bridge, and there's an owl on the guardrail on the bridge, and he passes by it. And I said, how many times have you prayed on that bridge? Oh, never once. And how many times have you prayed driving? He goes, never once. First and only time I've ever prayed driving. And I thought that was really touching, because there's certainly a message there,
Mm-hmm.
and I recognize it right away. But it didn't. But it doesn't. It didn't. He didn't need to have a parent who had just died to have that experience, and he recognized it as something powerful.
Right. Yeah, that is powerful.
Yeah. I want people to understand, and this, that with owls, it's also about life and about other things too, right? It's about good omens, and good things that could happen. So, but yeah, I get the death thing, because we've had it personally happen to our family.
With an owl.
His sister, or her sister.
Right after losing her son.
Yeah.
And I think I might have told you this story before, but I'm going to do it really
Please
quick.
do.
Right after losing her son from a brain tumor, he actually passed at home. We were all with him. My sister and brother-in-law were driving to pick up his ashes from he was cremated. And along the way, they see this owl that had been, they assumed, hit by a car on the side of the road. So they stopped real quick, and the owl looked at them, eyes wide open. And Linda said, my sister said, it's so weird, because it looked at us exactly, had the same exact look as our son.
Oh, very common.
And then the way that their son looked at them right before passing, and then it turned its head, took its last breath, and its eyes closed. Exactly like my nephew's passing. Well, they got in the car and took off and said, no, we need to go back and pick this owl up, because...
Yeah, after they picked the ashes up.
Yeah. And when they did, the owl was gone.
I was going to finish that sentence for you.
There was no feathers, no blood, no evidence that an owl was ever in there.
Very common.
But they said, it was so weird that it brought great relief. And it was, they were in terrible pain that day, picking your son's ashes up. So, that's one. I don't see that as a bad, negative, any kind of a...
Well, yeah,
it's a beautiful story.
It is a beautiful story. There's, of course, it's affiliated with that, but it's
right.
Beautiful. And
there's I had another account where a woman came from her. the mother of a fellow contact. So a fellow contacted me, and his mother had died. And it happened 11 days. There's two stories. I'm only going to tell one of them, but there's two associated stories, and they're both rich. But they're two sisters. They were born 11 years apart, and they died 11 days apart.
Mm.
Oh my.
And so, but the one sister, the fellow's name is Lon, and I can't remember the sister's name. So he contacts his aunt. So it would have been his cousin, excuse me. It would have been the daughter of his mom's sister. So it would have been his cousin. And she says, I just am so distraught over mom's passing. It's really been hard for me. And he says, just wait for a sign. Just wait for a sign. And not too much time goes by. And then she calls him and she says, Lonnie, I'm in the garage and there's an owl in the garage. And I think it's mom. I'm talking to it. It's mom. And she looks at the owl and says, Mom, Lonnie's here. Lonnie's on the phone right now. And the story was that the garage was totally her husband's garage. It was all the stuff except the mom had one shelf in the garage. That was her stuff. And she goes in there and the garage door is closed and there's an owl on the shelf. She didn't know how it got in there. The garage door is closed. And this was around Thanksgiving time. So she talks to Lonnie. She gets some pictures of it. I got a picture of it in the messengers. And then finally they go to a Thanksgiving dinner. And they have Thanksgiving dinner and they come back and the owl's still in the garage. And the daughter goes, Mom, I get it. I get it. You can go now. And the owl flies out of the garage. Ooh. And so here's a very strange. So the other that was Lonnie's cousin's mom. That part of the story. Lon's mother. There was all kinds of synchronicities surrounding her passing, and having to do with oak trees. And then when I did the math, I just had to look it up. It was like, so one sister died. 11 days later, the other sister died. 11 days after that in the calendar was the day my mother died.
Oh.
And 11 is the number of the psychic, the medium, the empath.
So that's 11. Yeah, so there's 11 days separating. So it's 11-11.
Yep.
So 11 days from one event, 11 days to the next event. So who or what energy would organize this kind of synchronistic, coincidence?
Yeah. Synchronicity.
Soul journey. It's all for a reason.
So I'm going to be bad here. I'm going to tell you my story that I told.
Please do. That's not bad at all. I listen to stories all day long.
Okay, so we were doing this event called the Flower of Life, and one of the things we did at the event was healing lodge, or you had to call it a healing lodge instead of a sweat lodge.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so during the day, as we were doing the sweat lodge, we heard an owl out there. Nonstop. Well, the person who put it on is a shaman friend of mine, Barry White Crow. And he said, tonight I want to tell you, I had a dream about you and your name. I want to give you a name. I said, oh, great.
Native American.
So, yeah, Native American name. So we were around the fire, and it wasn't dark yet completely. He said, I had a dream, and your native, I can't say, I'm not supposed to say the actual native name, but it was Night Gray Owl.
Mm-hmm.
So Deb and I had to run into this little town to get some things. And it wasn't quite dark yet. We got our things and we were coming back. And right before the driveway, and it had got dark then, this giant gray owl lands right into the middle of the street, right in front of us.
We had to stop the car.
We had to stop the car. And we looked at each other, oh my God, this is just, a half hour after that he gave me that name. And
wow.
So, and I've never seen an owl land in the road, the middle of the road, but he just stood there and looked at us and turned his head. And we were like, oh my God,
Yeah.
We could tell it was definitely meant for us. And so, and then he flew away.
Mhm.
So, and I, from that day on, I'll never doubt again that they deal with the paranormal, with the mystic, they have some kind of connection with the spirit world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Mike, what is your feelings? I mean, owls are an animal, right? They're flesh and blood, but why so mystical?
Whew, why so mystical? So I would say that owls. So the ancient folklore of the owl is a little bit different. So you go to a tribe in the Southwest, they have a mythos and a folklore and traditions about the owl, and then you go up to Canada, they might have multiple traditions. One valley might have one tradition, and the next tribe and the next valley over might have another tradition. But the consistency within these traditions are that the owl. So the owl can see into the darkness. We're like, this is modern times. We know about evolution. We know about the specialized. So the owls, you can say now that the owls can see into the darkness, and the reason they can see into the darkness is because they have these specialized eyes that can just take in the less light. So we can rationalize it. We can talk about it in scientific terms and in evolutionary terms. But to ancient man, it just must have been magic. Owls can fly in complete darkness. That's magic. Doesn't make any sense. They're magical animals. And an owl can fly in the forest, through the trees, through the tight trees, in what we would call complete and total darkness. There's enough available light, even when there's almost no light,
Right.
that they can do that with ease. Now, ancient man that turned into owls traveling to other realms, traveling to the forest at night. Forest means something, right? We live in a land of electric light bulbs. Wasn't
Right.
too many generations ago that the without the forest you didn't have a flashlight. It was a place of testing. It was a place of initiation. And so now the owl flies into the darkness, flies through the forest at night, goes to those other realms, metaphorically, the land of the dead, the land of the gods, the land of our ancestors, that other realm. And the next step would be they would return with a message. And that's different than other messenger birds. Ravens, very associated with messages, but they fly in the day. They fly in the daytime. So eagles are filled with mythic lore. They're a total power animal, but they fly in the open sky. The owl flies in the forest at night. The eagle flies in the open sky. They have totally different folklore, totally different traditions surrounding them. The eagle is very masculine. Zeus lived on the top of Mount Olympus. He had an eagle as his symbol, and bright sunshine and the owl flying in the clear blue sky. The owl in ancient myth, or the Western myths, Athena lived in the forest. A maiden, a virgin, she had a companion owl. The mythos is much different. So the owl would be the shadow figure. So the eagle would be the conscious, and the owl would be the subconscious.
Right.
And so you're and I also think that the archetypal properties of the owl, right? So an archetype would, by some definitions, would be our shared memory bank. We've had owls. Mankind has lived side by side with owls all throughout our time. So the power of this animal has been recognized all through generation after generation, that would have seeped into our collective consciousness. So when modern man, sees an owl in the backyard on the barbecue, they're instantly tapping into that lineage of human memory and that power. So here's what happens. This is like, people say, I saw an owl, it was on the fence in the backyard. They then say, it was such a blessing to see that owl. It had a majesty, it had a mystique. I locked eyes with it. It touched my soul.
Right.
There's nothing to their story other than an owl in the backyard, but it's filled with that kind of power. People don't say that when they see a bunny rabbit or a deer in the backyard, you know. So.
Right.
It kind of reminds me, when you see a picture of a witch or a Wiccan that always has the black cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the black cat can see into the spirit world.
Yep.
And then you always see a wizard sometimes with an owl, and maybe because they have this vision that they can see other light spectrums in the spirit world, maybe that's why they have them around, because they can tell them what's coming and what's going. Yeah.
Well, in the Once a Future King, which was the Sword and the Stone, the wizard Merlin had a companion owl called Archimedes in the fictional story. So yeah, that's right there in the lore. Oh, and then in Harry Potter has an owl that delivers the mail, and that's the messenger. It's as plain as it can possibly be, and that's not ancient history. That's right here, right now.
Right.
I did the author J.K. Rowling do that on purpose, or did it come organically? She just fit, like, that would be the perfect animal to deliver the mail, and it just happened that it emerged organically. That would be much more fun to me.
Right.
Yeah, and most likely how it happened. Yeah, I have to put this comment up just because I keep getting a kick out of it. And I can't read it from
I have to watch the replay, but sending salutations and love from the road. I'll see you later. Much love.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I think that's in reference to the stories we're both telling about past love.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I remember I've read so many books. In your book, one of your books was, I can't remember, it was you driving or somebody else driving, and they saw this owl and freaked out, and the passenger was, oh, well, it's just an owl. But yeah, you said this owl, the person said this owl is 4 feet tall.
Oh, that shows a point. I get the 4 foot tall owl on the road. Oh my God, like 500 times. Like a couple times a week, I get the 4 foot tall owl on the road story. That's maybe an exaggeration, but a couple times a month for sure.
Right.
And the 4 foot tall owl is absolutely, it's all over the place. Now the 4 foot tall owl. Now this is tough to use. I can't say all the 4 foot tall owl stories. Now the are like point to this one thing, but in the UFO abduction lore, the people who do the research, and I've talked to a lot of them, and some of who have passed. I knew Bud very well, and here's what the story people tell. Driving down the road at night, or here I'll tell an exact story. So this happened to me. I was at my very first UFO conference, and they had the abduction support group meeting. And at that point, I was unsure what was going on in my life. I was I was a mess. I was completely unhinged. I was like, I think this is going on in my life, the UFO contact thing. And I think I might have been abducted, but I was like too nervous to say it. So I went to this meeting, and people talking. It was like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Everyone's sitting in a circle, and someone says, my name's, Bob, and here's my story. And then at the end, I kind of sheepishly, oh no, it wasn't me. At the end, a guy raises his hand very sheepishly and says, has anyone in this room had any weird experiences with owls? And this guy like almost fell out of his chair when pretty much everyone in the room, including me, raised their hand. And he was like, whoa. So he told his story. He was a photographer. And he was driving down the road at night, and there's a 4 foot tall owl on the side of the road. And he pulls up alongside this 4 foot tall owl, and he rolls his window down, looks at this thing, and then he gets a really bad feeling. He drives on. And later he goes to take a picture of an owl's nest in a tree. He's got his telephoto lens and his camera. He's looking through the thing, and he's looking at this owl's nest, and he goes, I don't think that was an owl I saw on the road. Right? The biggest owl in the world is not ever going to be 4 foot tall. They can get pretty darn big, but they're not going to be 4 foot tall. Their wings can be well over 4 foot from wingtip to wingtip, but they can't be tall like that. And then he went through hypnotic regression, and then the only thing that came out was that the owl was wearing boots.
Oh wow!
Really?
Wearing boots, yeah. So and what happens? I've talked to a lot of, I've talked to you must know Yvonne Smith. So I talked to Yvonne.
Not personally, but we know.
Yeah, so I spoke with her in person. I said, do you get a lot of owl stories? And she kind of rolled her eyes. Like, oh, I get owl stories all the time. The 4 foot tall owl on the road. We get it all the time. And I'm like, oh, well, like, So they're like, it's normal. So what the implicate, she does the hypnosis. The person goes under. They say, let's take. So what often happens? People drive down the road at night, see the 4-foot tall owl. And they say, oh, isn't that strange? Maybe it flies off, or maybe they just don't notice it leaving, and then they arrive home, and then should have been home at midnight instead. It's 2 a.m. So it's missing time, and then they eventually go through the. Not everyone does this, but she said this has happened many times where you have the person and say, describe the owl. And the person under hypnosis says, well, it's got a bald head and big black eyes, and it's wearing a tight spacesuit, and it's got super skinny, and I don't think that's an owl. They're usually describing a gray alien. And there's many cases where people they'll have an interaction with an alien, and then the gray alien will say, you will remember us as an owl. So the implication is that they're using some sort of screen memory, some sort of psychic projection to obscure the mind of the observer. Here's one story. This is actually she's downstairs right now, the woman who told me this story. And she's wonderful. She's had a lot of experiences in her life. When she was 16 years old, she was working at a summer camp for girls. And she was already well aware, she would have been 19 years old. She was working at a summer camp for girls, and she was already well aware that she had been having alien contact experiences. She had seen aliens in the hallway of her house and had weird experiences. And so she's at this campground, and it's deep in the forest, and there's only a spot like in the backcountry where there's a flat spot for some tents to go here, and then you walk along the trail and you go around a corner, and then there's another flat spot over here. So the 2 campsites, all the same party, all the same set of girls, but they just had to be camped separately. So she's at one site and she walks to the other one. Full daylight, middle of summer. She's walking down the trail. She turns the trail. There's a gray alien standing alongside the trail. Full daylight. Like she said, this thing looked so chalky, white, and ugly. And it was like sun gleaming off its bald head. And it looks at her and she looks at him, and it gives this thing like, uh-oh, you weren't supposed to see me. And that all communication, this is almost consistent. 100%, I would dare say that all the communication is telepathic between these beings and people. So there's this telepathic communication that boom from the owl, and the owl is going, the owl, I just did it. For the gray alien is going owl, 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 owl. And then she watches this thing this gray alien morph into a 4-foot tall owl, turns around and walks into the woods.
What's it called? It's called
shape-shifting.
Well, Syntai, or I can't think of the name anyway, where they can project to you what you're feeling or seeing, whatever.
Right. There's funny stories where someone will see an owl, and then the passenger person will see a deer. So at the top of the list are owl and deer that get caught as screen memories. And then below that there are raccoons and squirrels and firemen and Jesus. A lot of stories of Jesus showing up as screen memory. Dead relatives show up as not a lot, but some. But at the top of the list is I don't think I'm talking out of my hat. I think this is understood that it's deer and owls. Both of those are powerful symbolic animals, archetypal animals. A lot of mythic lore. Both of them are very feminine animals. Like there's feminine lore connected to the deer. There's feminine lore connected to the owl. So I asked researchers, like, why do the gray aliens use the owl as a screen memory? I asked this of Bud Hopkins. He said, well, it's just that they look like owls. Like, deer don't look like owls. Deer don't look like gray aliens, or
no.
Yeah, so
they do kind of have big eyes, but I wouldn't say they look.
Well, they have nocturnal eyes. They have big black eyes. Yeah. So the owls or the deer walk around. I'm doing this thing that I do so much, where I call everything an owl at a certain point. I call the aliens owls. I'm calling the deer an owl. I just did it just now. So,
okay, I wanted to put this question up before we run out of time. Can you read that?
What is the oldest known depiction of owls? Did they always stand for mysterious happenings, or did it evolve over time?
Well, I have no idea whether it evolved. Obviously everything evolves over time, so I can say yes to that, but I mean, how much it did. But there's a beautiful rendering of an owl in a cave in France. It's called the Chauveau Cave. And that's, and it's one is scratched into the wall, and the other one is painted with whatever inks or dyes or that they would have used at that time. So, and that would be, as far as I know, that's the oldest known cave art, or representational art of an owl. And so I guess that's estimated at being like 33,000 years old.
Right.
So, and that would be easy to look up, the Chauveau, C-H-O. I can't remember how it's spelled.
Yeah. In the caves under like in the water and right.
In the limestone mountains of in France. Yeah.
Now you said the owl wore boots.
Oh, that's Ann Carter. Hi, Ann Carter.
I was thinking.
That's who asked that.
I know Ann Carter well. So.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking the Ozzy song "Fairies Wear Boots" and just change that to owls. Owls wear boots. You better believe it. That's for sure.
So true. So true. So I'm reading another comment from Newcraft. In some of the Dolores Cannon regressions, a person remembers seeing an owl, but under regression, there was a UFO event instead of seeing an owl. And we get that often as well. We, of course, do UFO work and a show called Voices of Contact with the regressionist. And a lot of our cases, people they think they see like an owl or a panther, and it ends up being something that the human mind can handle. What it can't.
It would be pretty freaky to see a gray alien standing in the middle of the road. But
it would.
But you know what So Dolores Cannon had her own owl sighting, and that was in her book, The Custodians. Yeah. So here's the question I ask of people. I ask, what was going on in your life leading up to the event, and what changed after? That's what I'm most concerned about. How did you transform because of your experience? Whether it's an experience with an owl, whether it's an experience with a UFO, whether it's an experience with a powerful synchronicity.
Right.
How did it change your life? Because if they're coming to me and telling it to me, they're like they're usually there's something big there. So I never talked with Dolores Cannon about this event, but when she was living in Arkansas. She was a family therapist, just doing normal thing, and she was doing hypnosis work, stress reduction, quitting smoking, very normal workaday things that you would see a family therapist for, that she was helping with. She was using hypnosis in her practice. So there came a day when she was getting this little, when people were under hypnosis, they would this UFO stuff would come out. And she was like, God, do I go down this road? Do I follow this UFO thing? So once a month, they would have a monthly meeting with all the clinicians that worked at her office. So they all sit around, check in, and so how's things going? What's going on in your work right now? Anything we should know about? And she said, I'm getting this UFO stuff in my hypnosis work, and I have to make a decision. Am I going to pay attention to this? Am I going to follow this, or am I going to just ignore it and just focus on my family therapy? And that night, she's driving home, and she turns a corner, and she's driving her truck in the backwoods of, she's in rural Arkansas, and there's an owl in the middle of the road. And she pulls right up to the owl, and the owl didn't really want to move, and then the owl would get up and fly down the road and land again. And she would drive up, and she'd have to stop. And the owl would lift up and fly down the road, did it all the way to her house. And it stood at the edge of her driveway, and she passed in, and she told her son, God, I saw this 4-foot tall owl in the road. She's like, Mom, there's no such thing as a 4-foot tall owl. And then years later, she was at the British Museum, and there was a big display case of all these owls. And she walked into, it was like this, every owl in the world, a big owl, small owls. And she walked through looked at all these owls, and she said, I don't think that was an owl I saw that night. It doesn't match anything in this display. So I never had a chance to talk with her, but what was going on in her life leading up to the event, she said, I am at a crossroads. I need to decide whether I'm going to pursue this UFO weirdness. And then after that, obviously, she did. She wrote like, I don't know, like 12 books or something like that on her research. So yeah, so that question, what was going on before the event and what changed after, is like core to my research.
So, Mike, we only got like 2 minutes.
Oh my word! I'm sorry, I've been all talky.
I just want people to know where they can get a hold of you. And
so if you can't remember my name, which is Mike Clelland, just like it sounds, Mike Clelland, you can go to mikeclelland.com. And if you can't remember that, you can Google UFOs and owls. You can do it right now. And if you just type in UFOs, owls, I am the first thing that comes up, and I'm about the next 25 things below that. So I'm very easy to find, and that should take you right. You should have no problem finding my website. From my website, you can connect to my podcast, to my books. I got some cartoons there. I got some written stuff, my blog and things. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it's always fascinating, all the information that comes out. So we want to thank you for joining us tonight.
And we hope to have you again soon.
Yes. And Owen, I'm going to reach out to both of you, because I'm going to would love to do a formal interview to hear your owl stories and actually record it and document it, because your story of your sister's son is so perfect and so beautiful. And I hadn't heard exactly that story. It would fit so beautifully in my book. And also your gray owl account after getting your spirit name. That's
yeah, we'd love that.
Oh yeah, please. I'll reach out to you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
So good to connect. So good to catch up.
Everybody, we love you. Have a fantastic week, and until we meet again, may all of your awakenings be mystical.
Thank you
so much, everybody.